Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining, and welcome everyone. I just wanted to go through a couple of housekeeping information before we get started. So I'll just share my screen a second, and we'll get started quickly after this. Let me just pull it up. So just a couple of really quick things. If you're experiencing any audio issues, there is going to be a call-in number on the chat that you can call from your location. So you can use that to call in. The presentation is recorded and it will be available 24 hours after the event on the DevSummit website. If you have any questions on the code of conduct, you can see it at devsummit.arm.com/FAQ. And if for any reason you're having issues with Zoom, go to the website again and try to re-enter. Okay, and the last point here is the most important one, and that's why it's yellow. If you have any questions, could you please post them in the chat, and then we'll take them as we move along in the presentation and in the workshop. So please feel free to add anything in the chat. And the next thing is, we've sent a couple of kind of instructions on things to do beforehand. So I hope you've all done it. If not, these are the instructions that you should do now. So I guess David and John, while you guys speak, people could probably get started with this if they haven't done it already. And I think we're getting the links in the chat as well, so that people can follow through easily. So we'll put the links in the chat. And with that, I think I'll just hand it over to David and John, that you guys could get started. We'll be putting these links in the chat if you haven't done this already. Thank you.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Alessandro. So let me bring my screen share back up real quick. So sorry, Alessandro, I'm going to boot you. And let me know if that works. Should be seeing containers over the air, hopefully.
Looks good.
All right, perfect. Now, I did lose my chat when I did that, but I can bring it back. All right, perfect. All right, thanks. I see iShot JR is in. iShot JR, I'm fairly certain you know how to build this already. I think I saw you do one, but all good. So thank you, Alessandro, for the intro. As mentioned, I am David Tischler. I am a developer advocate at Balena, and I'm joined by John Tonello. John, do you want to say hello and do a quick intro as well?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I work alongside David and our hardware hackers. We actually have a group of folks inside Balena whose job it is to constantly create and test new things with our platform and the ecosystem. And actually, the project you're going to be seeing today is something that they created. And there's a lot more of that, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Later on.
They get to build and hack, and then we get to show it off. So I think the joke is on them. I think we got the better end of that deal. So, but we are going to be building our first IoT device today. Hopefully you're all in the right place, and I think most of you should have received a kit that looks something like this. Mine's got some stickers on top. I don't know, yours might not have shipped with those, but you should have a kit ready to go for this workshop as well. And it's got some of the gear we're going to be using, such as a Raspberry Pi and a SenseHAT. And at the end of the workshop, you'll come away with a fully functioning IoT weather station with a little web-based dashboard to monitor your environmental conditions. So it's a fun one. We really enjoy it. I hope you guys do too. So let's move on real quick to the agenda. So we'll do a quick intro and background. We're going to go through the process of building the hardware and then using Balena Cloud. So that's going to consist of account creation on Balena Cloud. We'll assemble the hardware. We are going to do two passes at this, one easy way and one hard way. The easy way, it's pretty much just those first 3 bullet points right there. The hard way though is we're gonna go and do a CLI installation and push a container, and we'll talk about some scaling and fleet management, and we've got some bonus links and projects at the end. And I apologize in advance. I'm actually gonna move pretty quickly. I did a few timed runs of this, and I see that we have 90 minutes available today, but I ran a little over 90 in my trial runs, so I'm going to try to move quickly. But, you know, we can always answer any questions after the fact. By all means, you know, we'll make ourselves available for any after session chit chat or questions. All right, so real quickly, who am I? I am an ARM innovator. So I am lucky enough to have been selected for some opportunities to come and speak, some hardware and, you know, access to some usually beta type of products and projects. And luckily enough, have been able to attend ARM TechCon 2018 and 2019, both Lenaro Connect sessions last year, ARM partner meeting last year, AIoT DevFest, which was in January of this year. But as you can see, after that came a global pandemic, and travel and events have been limited. But I'm happy to be back in action for this event for ARM DevSummit. And I think that, Alessandro, you've been at most of those as well. All right.
It was much nicer when we could actually see each other in person, but
yeah,
oh,
instead of
as you said, the global pandemic. But we're all here anyways.
Yeah, but we're here, we made it, and we're going to figure this out. So yeah, this is typically a workshop that I would do in person in a classroom environment, you know, to be able to like help folks along by wandering around the room. But we'll figure it out. We'll do it virtual. We'll make it work. All right. So quick question for the audience. Some people may already know the answer to this, but who is Balena? Does anybody know? I'm going to take a quick glance over at chat real quickly. I see Sydney's in Chicago. Welcome. I love Chicago. We're supposed to have an event there this year, actually. After office hours after the workshop, we'll figure something out. I'll leave that to Alessandro. Something about containers or something. No, yes, not me. Austin. I've been there many times also. All right, first time with Balena. So real quick, here's how most people know us. Etcher. Etcher is used for flashing SD cards, and we're going to use it today. So if you've ever flashed Ubuntu or CentOS or Debian or other a Raspbian for that matter on a Raspberry Pi, you might have come across and used Etcher. Etcher is an open source project. Simple as that. Choose your image, choose your SD card or USB stick, and hit flash. But that doesn't actually pay the bills to keep us all up and running and employed. Balena, actually the product is Balena Cloud, and that is an IoT fleet management platform. And what that consists of is a couple different components, and we're going to talk through them in greater detail in a few minutes here. But Balena Cloud is a web-based control panel, control layer that allows you to manage and maintain your IoT devices. In this particular case today, we're going to be using a Raspberry Pi, but there's about 50 other devices that are supported as well. Jetson Nano is another popular one, but then there's quite a few quote unquote enterprise grade devices as well that are a little bit more industrial than a Raspberry Pi. It also consists of Balena OS, which is an operating system. So we're not going to be using Raspbian today. We're actually going to be using Balena OS, and I'll talk in greater detail about that. And then Balena Engine, which is a container runtime, and that is based on the Docker open source contribution, Moby, and we'll get into that in a little bit as well. So what do we mean by fleet management? And I promise I'm only going to talk for a few more minutes and then we'll get into the good stuff. But fleet management is all about scaling from one device to multiple devices, right? So today we're going to have our Raspberry Pi on our desk in arm's reach and build it. That's all well and good, but what starts to happen once you have 10 devices or 100 devices or 1,000 devices? And they might not even be the same device type. You know, you might have different types of machines that are running different workloads. And then what happens if they're not actually all on your desk? You still need a way to manage and maintain those. And that's where Balena Cloud comes in. So fair warning though that the devices do not work in China due to their firewall restrictions. So if you are looking to deploy your IoT project in China, you are going to need to seek another solution. Okay. And I see some folks have used Etcher. Awesome. And brilliant graphic. Oh, thanks, David. All right. So last few talking points before we get into the good stuff. I started to mention the architecture a little bit, and we'll go a little deeper here on Balena OS. So like I said, we're not using Raspbian today. Balena produces a custom-built OS, and that's on purpose. It's minimal by design, which is inherently then a bit more secure. When you reduce the number of packages that are installed, you reduce the number of potential threat vectors or exploits. You know, I mean, you've all seen the various Heartbleed or other types of you know, applications that get compromised, right? So you don't want to run things that you don't need to run. So no, we're not installing a desktop. No, we're not installing, you know, trying to think like image editors or other, you know, music players and things that make Raspbian a very user-friendly operating system for a desktop. But in this particular case, for an IoT device, we want minimal. That actually also then comes along with a few additional features, which means that you're lowering your RAM utilization and your resource requirements. And then there's some other customizations built in, such as this redundant root FS partition concept, which basically means you have two side-by-side OSs living on your SD card. And then the reason for that is if you then go and do upgrades and things don't go according to plans, you don't accidentally brick a device out in the field and have to get on an airplane. So that's convenient for you know, your upgrade cycles. There's a checklist built in, and if not all checks pass, you boot into the previous installation. More tolerant of power loss and minimized SD card writes help with, you know, device life cycle longevity. And then I'll go through quickly a couple of bullet points for Balena Engine, which we mentioned, and that's the Docker runtime or the container runtime based on Moby. And similar to Balena OS, we've done some customization here to minimize the overall footprint. Docker was conceived in the data center. It assumes that you have consistent power and connectivity. That's not always the case when you're living in the IoT world. Power losses and connectivity losses occur on a regular basis, unlike a data center. Well, hopefully unlike a data center. If that's occurring in your data center, you have a different set of concerns. But one really good bullet point here, Delta pulls to save bandwidth. So a lot of customers I've noticed are using more and more machine learning and computer vision and AI workloads. The containers that they're running are 2, 3, 4, I saw one 6 gigs the other day. Every time you update your model or your algorithm gets smarter, you don't want to push a 6 gig container to your fleet of devices, especially if those devices are in the middle of a jungle or are, you know, in a place that has 2G connectivity. It'll take a month and a half to download that container. So the deltas work by only pushing the layers that have changed to the device, which is really good for bandwidth constrained devices that we see in the IoT world. And then similarly, there's some fault tolerance there as well, which again is not inherent in the regular Docker. All right, so I did enough talking. Let's take a quick pause for any questions. Alessandro, did you see anything come through? Let's see here.
Question, David, that just came up and says, do you need Docker installed on the OS? And I just was replying that Docker, the runtime is the part of it is Balena engine. Balena engine is essentially a Docker runtime.
Yep, perfect, thanks. So no need to install it separately. It comes baked in to the operating system. Perfect.
So, and you'll see as soon as a device, the OS is loaded, it is container ready.
Yep, and I see you also got one from Enrique. Thank you, Enrique, for the question. So it is a Linux core, and John's got you an answer there. Yep, a minimal optimized Linux. Thanks, John. All right.
One more thing I'll say.
Oh, go ahead.
There was a question. Sorry, David. No, that's all right. So there was a question about, is there any office hours or chat that people could join later? David, if you're right, I mean, I can send people to Discord if you think that could work. Because we don't have anything in DevSummit. If you're happy to spend a few minutes after the session.
Yeah, well, so that's what I was just going to say. So I do not have any firm commitments beyond this. I, of course, saved extra time. Now, I know you want to end the call, stop the recording at that 90-minute mark, and I get that. But unless you need this Zoom room, I am able to also carry on here as well. So it's a kind of Alessandro and Louise, I'll let you guys sort of like figure that out in the background while I keep going, but I'm totally flexible. So whatever you think.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Cheers.
Yep. All right. So let's do this, huh? Let's do exactly what I was mentioning earlier is we're actually going to build this device twice, but we're going to do it the easy way first, just to sort of get our feet wet. And then we're going to come back around and we're going to start over and do it the hard way. But I figure it's better to start with the easy way because we'll be able to talk through some of the concepts. So let's get going. I am going to, let me think about how I want to screen share as well as drive. So you can see my desktop, of course. I have our slide deck up, but I also have some other tabs here, which is Balena Cloud. So I think what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to kind of hop back and forth from the deck to my live setup. If anyone gets lost, confused, or has questions, just drop them in chat and we'll get them triaged. So the first thing that we need to do, as you can see here, is create an account. So what you'll need to do is go to balena.io. So I'll give folks a second to do that. Yep, thank you, Adam. There is the link, balena.io. Simple enough. And at the top right, there's login or sign up. I'm going to assume that you don't have an account already. If you do, just simply hit login. Otherwise, click sign up. And you'll get the sign up page. And you'll see that the first 10 devices are free. So I know that you have one device that's still in pieces on your desk. You can actually add up to 9 more of these. So if you want to go do some shopping and pick up 9 more Raspberry Pis, you can add up to 10. We don't charge anything until you get to your 11th device, and it's full featured. It's not like a cut down version while you're on the free plan. I mean, we just, we want people using the platform, right? So you can add more of these. Once you get to 11, then you get a prompt that says, hey, you need to enter your credit card information, but we don't even ask for the credit card. We don't care until you start to really scale. So after you put in an email address and create a password and create an account, you will come into the dashboard. The dashboard is going to be empty. You don't have any applications or devices yet. So let me take a quick glance at chat, make sure we're okay here. I'm in, it worked. All right. Okay, perfect. So at this point, I'm just going to show that I'm actually logged in over here. I have a lot of applications because, I mean, this is my day job, right? So I've got all these different applications in here, and applications are a way to segment your workloads or segment your geographic regions or your devices. So you can see I have some different ones in here, like this one is a Jetson Nano project. Here's a pose estimator. Alessandro, I know you like AI. I've got actually quite a few AI projects running in here. Like here's Always AI. So anyways, here's a Movidia stick one. CUDA. But anyways, yours is going to be empty for the moment. Now, I know you're tempted to hit that create application button, but you don't even need to do that. Time for a new tab. Open up a new tab in your browser.
One thing before you do
go
that,
ahead.
David, is the Balena paradigm is application then device based.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
when David's talking about his projects and different things, first you create an application, and that can have code attached to it or not, and then you basically choose the device that type that matches that application, and you'll see that in a future step. But just from a paradigm standpoint, that's why we talk about applications, because devices are always associated with an application.
Yeah, correct. Thank you for that perfect clarification there. And I see the question about what devices do you support. Hold that thought, David, because I'm going to cover that, and I have that one strategically queued up for a spot where I'm going to need to fill a few minutes. So hold that one there. All right, so in a new tab, though, we're going to head over to GitHub real quick. And Adam, if you can drop in this link. Actually, I might even be able to myself. Let's have a quick look. Oop, nope. Let me see if it'll let me. He beat me to it. All right. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it. This is our GitHub repo for Balena Sense. This is the project we're going to deploy literally right now. And as it's a GitHub repo, you can see all the folders are in here: Grafana, images, InfluxDB, Sensor, and Telegraph. I'm going to come back around and talk about these more in a few minutes. For the moment, though, all I want is to scroll down. There's plenty of description and some hardware and some build steps. Talks about other optional hardware. Software required. There is a big blue button right here that says Deploy with Balena. And all you need to do is click on that. It will kick you back through to the Balena dashboard. And I can choose to deploy to an existing application. Now, you guys don't have any existing ones that I know of. Get that out of the way. Or you can create a new application instead. I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call it DevSummit. That's fine. The default device type is on Raspberry Pi 4. Now, if you're using the kit that you got from SparkFun, you're going to actually want to scroll down here and go to Raspberry Pi 3. And you can leave it on application type starter is totally fine. And we're going to hit create and deploy. And a couple of things are going to happen here. So first things first, it's going to obviously create the application. That'll take a moment. Taking a few seconds longer than normal. I don't know if I said my prayer to the demo gods, actually. We might have a little problem here. Oh, there it goes. All right, we're good. So I have created the application. And as John mentioned a moment ago, we have the two different concepts, applications and devices. We selected the type of device as a Raspberry Pi 3 for the default device, but we haven't actually added the device yet. So that is the next step. And it took just a quick moment there, but if you look up here on my screen, you'll see building release. What actually happened when I clicked that blue button is it fired off a job to the Balena Cloud servers to start building that GitHub repository. Those containers, or those, I should say, those folders that were in GitHub are now being built. And we're gonna talk about that when we go into the hard way. But just for the moment, make note that there is a build that is running in the cloud right now as we speak. So I'm gonna add a device now. And when you click add a device, you get this pop up here. It defaulted to a Raspberry Pi 3 because that's what we selected on that previous step. I'm going to leave the versions alone. I'm actually going to choose Development Edition. You have two choices, development or production. I'm going to choose development just in case things take a turn for the worse here. The difference is this. On production images, there's no serial port enabled on the device, and SSH is only available through Balena Cloud or through the Balena CLI. So there's some further hardening of the device, and I'm gonna save a talking point there as well for once our containers begin to download. But I'm gonna now choose Wi-Fi plus Ethernet, and I'm gonna put in my Wi-Fi credentials here. So put in your local Wi-Fi credentials. Now, I want to also make a note that we're not saving or storing these here in Balena Cloud. These are going to get passed through to the device. So let me put this in.
And while you're doing that,
yep.
This is equivalent if you've ever used a Raspberry Pi and set up Raspbian and you've edited that config.txt file with your Wi-Fi credentials, or had to attach a monitor and keyboard and maybe a mouse to the Raspberry Pi to do some initial configurations, including the network. This skips all that and basically writes the Wi-Fi information along with some other stuff to the image that will now be downloaded.
I just clicked the blue button at the bottom for download Balena OS. And what that does is fire off an API event with that Wi-Fi ID and password encrypted in as well to the builder, the image builder. So we already have that container build running, but the image builder, the OS builder, wraps that in, creates the image, and it downloads. So I now have downloaded this zip file. The zip file is an OS. So again, instead of downloading Raspbian, we literally just downloaded Balena OS. That was it. All right, so let's get that out of the way. Come back
and
up
it has
here,
a couple of things
that.
inside it, namely some identifiers for this application, and your it obviously knows that it's your account and not somebody else's account, and your Wi-Fi credentials. And again, as David said, none of this stuff is shared, but that image is unique to your application.
So it's here. All right, good. So it's time to break out some hardware. We went through some boring talking from me. We've got our application and device ready. It's time to flash an SD card, but our SD card is in here. So let's open this thing up, shall we? All right, I'm gonna switch my camera if I can figure out how. Let's do this. And if you're looking at me, now I know screen share is on. Are you able to see my desk? I've got some other odds and ends here that we're actually not going to use today, but I have just in case again. I've got a backup on backup plan. So.
Just pinned your camera so that everybody should be able to see it.
All right, perfect. So let's get this thing open. And in it, you should have a, oops, upside down. Well, that's okay. You should have a Pi 3A. That was one of the reasons for using wireless, because we are going over the air today. You should have a SenseHAT. Definitely going to need a power supply and an SD card. This is a 16 gig SD card. That is more than enough for this device. Let's get this thing open up. I'm gonna need this. Careful not to cut myself. All right, we've got an SD card. So I'm going to put SD card in laptop. Those of you that need an adapter, better grab that, like me. And I've got Etcher running.
And everybody's using a Raspberry Pi, but if you happen to have a device like we have, the Balena Fin, Jetson Nano, other devices that have onboard like eMMC, Flasher can also flash this image directly to that onboard storage.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
I'm going to take a question from the audience.
Go right ahead.
Unless you've already talked about it. Oh, it's gone. Wait, let me find it.
Yeah, well, while you're finding it,
yeah, no, the question is from David C. Black. Where is it running, the whole thing? Is it Balena servers?
The Balena servers are, actually, I think all of it is in AWS. All of our back-end infrastructure is our cloud, and our VPN system and all of that rides atop AWS. There might be some in Azure, I'm not sure, but it's, I mean, it's all cloud-based.
Yeah, and those cloud builders include the image builders.
Ooh, go ahead, John.
Which is what you see building the release. You know, so you don't have to, in this scenario, you don't have to be running Docker locally to do any of that. It's going to build it in the Balena Cloud servers.
Yep.
And same thing with the image builder. When David went through and selected Raspberry Pi 3 and set his Wi-Fi credentials, it basically took a stock image, added some other custom information, and then when you click download for that, it's coming from the cloud image builder.
Yeah.
All of the code, though, that when you're pushing this way, it actually grabbed a tar file from GitHub and sent that to the cloud builder, the Balena Cloud builder. And then ultimately, it will push it down to your device.
Yep.
So it does all the building off of your device, and then your device runs it.
All right. So real quickly, if you were watching as you guys were chatting, I did flash that image. Says it was successful, so I have it on my SD card. It's time to build some hardware. So let's start putting this all together. Get the power supply out of the way.
While you're doing that, David,
Yep.
David iShot JR asked, what's the Balena Fin? The Balena Fin is a Raspberry Pi carrier board. It's actually about the size of the Raspberry Pi 3, but it's essentially been hardened, so you can pop in the Raspberry Pi 3 carrier, which is a small module, and it also includes a SIM slot and a mini PCI slot, so you can, for example, plug in a modem like that.
Yeah.
And it also has onboard storage, so you can don't have to worry about an SD card with that.
Yeah, it is a backup device. Sorry, in case disaster strikes. But here's our Pi 3A, fresh out of the box. Most folks are more familiar with the larger platform of the Raspberry Pi 3B or 4B. Let me see if I can grab one. I should have one right here. Yeah, most folks are more familiar with this layout. For this demo, though, I wanted to save a little bit of space so you can see it, it fits just about the size of the GPIO pins. So you save a little room. You do sacrifice Ethernet, so that is something to keep in mind. And you're down to just one USB port as opposed to 4. But same CPU. It's only 512 megs of RAM, but that's enough for us today. So Pi 3A, again, see in a moment here why I like it for this project. Let's get this SenseHAT opened. And here is our SenseHAT. So the SenseHAT has quite a few goodies on it. We are only going to be making use of temperature, pressure, humidity, and come up with an approximation of air quality today. The SenseHAT does have some other stuff though that you can explore later on your own. A little joystick and a button. It's got an RGB LED. It's got an accelerometer and gyroscope, so you can get positioning off of your Pi. But let's go ahead and get it attached. Just snaps right on, and it's the same size and shape as the Pi 3A. So that's why, again, I went with this one here instead of the 3B or 4B. I don't think it included any standoffs, so you might get a little bit of sandwiching or Pac-manning, as we like to call it. You might want to grab some nylon or brass standoffs if you happen to have any laying around, if you're gonna actually put the device somewhere that, it might have a little bit of movement. But the through holes are lined up there. They're in the correct spots. Now, where did I put that SD card? Aha, there it is. So we just flashed that. So let's get our SD card in. Okay, looking good so far. And power this thing up. Got the power supply already unboxed as well. Plugged in. Oh boy. All right.
The hat is bright.
The hat is bright. Do not look directly at it when you power it on. You will be blinded. All right. So that will take a few minutes to go through its initial boot process. Subsequent boots are faster, but first boot will take a little bit longer. Okay, so with that said, let's let this thing come online.
Yeah, so what it's doing, it's booting into Balena OS, and what it will do is it will recognize the Wi-Fi credentials that you created, connect you to the network. It will then create a VPN connection with the Balena servers. And once that happens, it will begin to communicate. And you can see in David's dashboard that a device called Withered Breeze just came up.
Oh, Withered Breeze. Yep, online. That was pretty quick.
So it automatically did that communication. And from here on out, all the communication is over that VPN. And you can see it grabbed an IP address through DHCP from David's Moose Wi-Fi network. And the other information here you can see is that this is indeed a development version. Excuse me.
Yep, that's what we selected earlier.
Of that, and it's online.
All right. You can also click on
Let me just pause you guys
go ahead.
for 1 second.
Go right
ahead.
There
are a couple of people that are that joined late, so they didn't follow through all the instructions. They're asking if you've got anything online or if there's anything they can follow to get to this point. The answer is, I mean, one thing I wanted to say to everyone is that this is the easy way, and I think, David, you're just going to start over with another way in a minute, right? So
yeah,
it should also be okay.
Yes, that is correct. So there's two answers to that question. Is if you joined late, by all means, you missed the easy button version, but we're going to actually repeat these steps. And I'm looking at the clock just to make sure we're going to make it through that one. But we should be okay. And the second thing is all of this entire project is documented on our blog and in GitHub. Adam, if you don't mind, that GitHub link that you dropped in earlier has a walkthrough of this entire build. And if you do a quick Google search for Balena Sense on the Balena blog, there's a pretty massive tutorial as well. So I'm really, this presentation, this workshop is geared based directly off that anyway.
Another thing I'm quickly going to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, John. No, just a quick kind of a logistical answer that I wanted to give to everyone and to you guys. So we are okay to run over the hour and a half. So if maybe people will most likely want to drop off. Some people will drop off because they have to go somewhere else. But so let's keep it to the hour and a half. Let's try to keep it to the hour and a half. But if there is, people can stay in and chat afterwards. So. Just wanted to give that option to everyone.
Perfect. That is perfect. Let me switch camera back to me. The build is taking a little longer than I was hoping for. Although now I don't see it up here. Is it still running? Yeah, it's still building. All right, so those containers are still being built in the background. I'll actually use it then as a talking point. The container builders themselves, Alessandro and Louise, you guys will know this, are running at Packet. They're ARM servers. They're native ARM big servers. I want to say one of them is an Ampere box and another one is a Marvell Thunder X. So these containers are not being cross-built or cross-compiled. They're being built natively on ARM big servers, big hardware at Packet. So let's see here if we can figure out how far along it is. Still not available. All right, we'll give it another moment. There was another talking point from earlier that I had saved for precisely this reason, which is there was a question about the devices. And we saw that for a moment in the drop-down menu about which devices are supported. And I'm going to come over here to Balena OS to get a just to the website, because there is a list that I can grab from here. So you can see here, I'll scroll down, there are going to be quite a few devices that are names you might not recognize. Again, these are typically industrial and enterprise grade products that are not quite as hacker friendly as things like a Raspberry Pi, or you can see here the BeagleBone is supported as well. ASUS Tinkerboard is supported. These Atinas are TX2 carriers. BeagleBones, the CTIs are rather industrial. The Coral Dev Board is on here. That is using the Google TPU on board. It does also have Cortex A53 cores to run Linux. At your Pro, Firefly, there are some Intel devices as well. You know, we do support x86, of course, for those users. Nano Pies, a couple of those. Some of these nitrogens are from a company called Boundary Devices that build some really nice hardware. Here are the NVIDIA Jetson series, TX1, TX2, the Nano, both SD card or eMMC, Xavier's, a couple of Odroids, some Orange Pis, Raspberry Pis we know already. Upboard and Verisite produces quite a few enterprise boards. These are MX8s, that's an IMX8 SoC on it. MX6, MX7. So, you know, a lot of different SoCs supported, a lot of different devices supported. As long as there is a Yocto layer available for your hardware, you can also build Balena OS. It's open source. You can clone the GitHub repo and go through the build steps and support your own devices. I've done some experimentation on that myself. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's totally possible. I have built 3 or 4 random devices and they connect up to the dashboard just fine.
And there are Intel versions, and you can even use the QEMU images to create virtual machines that behave like a device. And I was just going to add, when you were talking about growing your own, yeah, that's entirely possible, but never really necessary, you know, for most things. But we do have customers that have custom devices and have developed their own.
Yep. So while I was talking, the build did finish. You can see it has succeeded. And here are the 5 containers that were built. Now I'm over here on the releases tab. I'm going to come back to devices so we can see Withered Breeze. And Withered Breeze just recognized that the containers finished building, and there's now a workload that is available for this device. So it's going to start downloading these containers, and it's going to do, I mean, it's going to take a moment to download. It's about a gig, a little over, maybe a gig and a half. I was just on the releases. I should have counted up how many megs, but it's grabbing these containers. I can see it's got Grafana, Influx, MQTT, and Sensor. I think we just noticed 5 on that list, so it'll keep chugging along. I'm going to give it another moment. Let me see. While we're waiting on the last ones to come down, were there any other questions that had rolled in?
There is an interesting question from Sydney asking, how do I customize my view? It seems like you've got some extra stuff on the right versus the default.
Interesting. I'm not sure that I actually did that. So under views, or I didn't realize I did that. Hold on a minute. Where am I looking? Here we go. The little gear all the way at the right has a drop down. And it must be part of my saved profile. I had forgotten all about the fact that I did this. So yes, you can turn on other columns, other fields here. So hopefully, Sydney, if you can see that. Let's see here. Let's see if I add one. Yeah, in fact, mine's actually scrolling. Yep. So I just added CPU use of about 24%. All right, quick time check. What are we at? 10:22. All right, so we're good. It's still downloading. I'm going to give it a few more minutes. Looks like 4 of the containers have made it. I see 1 of the containers is still processing. Let's see here. That last one, Telegraph, doesn't want to come down for me. Let me ask real quick. We'll do a quick audience poll. I do not have the fastest internet, and my build appears to still be processing that delta. Has anyone gotten all 5 of their containers running yet? Mine's still boot looping on that last container.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alexander got all 5. Yes. Rebecca's still building. So you can see, yeah, it varies. I think we absolutely just crushed that poor server at Packet. That poor eMag just got obliterated by 50 people running a build. So you can see mine is still cycling. I'm going to use a little trick. Everybody cover your eyes for those of you that are still waiting. I'm going to turn off this delta. Oh, actually, wait a minute. Maybe not. Telegraph 88%. Oh, it got it. Okay. Yeah, I think we are just absolutely crushing that poor server. We'll send Packet a gift basket. Actually, Louise, send a gift basket. Or Alessandro, send a gift basket. Packet's holding up good today. We just ran. So, I mean, honestly, though, but think about that. Okay, there's how many participants do we have right now on the list? 39. We all just did 5 containers. We just built from scratch 200 containers on that box. Like, pretty amazing. All right, so I've got my containers. They are all now running. So the OS recognized the workload, pulled them down over Wi-Fi, and started them up. We can see here in the logs that stuff is happening. You can see the container is labeled Telegraph, sensor, etc. Grafana's already running. And for those of you who are already complete, I'm going to switch my camera back real quick and show off a little added bonus. We do make use of the RGB LED. There's a little smiley face on it, which is hard to see on the camera. Go ahead, Alessandro.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. So it seems like there's a couple of people that are a bit behind. So I'm getting a question from David. I see on the website, my device is recognized, but he's not really sure what exactly you're doing now. So he sent me a private question so you don't see it in the chat. And then there's another, there's something else here. So Nikita is saying, I still don't seem to have a device added. So they're struggling to get.
And there's a couple of things here. There's a couple of possibilities. One is if you didn't select Wi-Fi and Ethernet and just left it on Ethernet, and you didn't enter Wi-Fi credentials at all, it obviously will fail because the Raspberry Pi A has no Ethernet. If you inadvertently entered your Wi-Fi credentials improperly, it also will not work. And if you did that, you'll have to go through the process of adding a device again. But what will happen if the Wi-Fi credentials are correct, the flashing worked, you insert it into your device, power it on, as long as you're in the application in the Balena Cloud dashboard, the device will just show up there. There's nothing that you need to do. You don't need to refresh the browser. It'll auto refresh itself and show up.
Yeah, so I'm taking a glance at chat. So a couple of things here. There was the question about what is going on, and what I wonder if perhaps the attendee may have joined a little bit late, but remember that the only thing I did was I clicked this blue button, Deploy with Balena, and it is what kicked off the whole process of the containers being built in the cloud. So not real sure if you may have missed that step, but this one here, this GitHub URL that Adam has dropped in, if you scroll about halfway down and you hit that blue Deploy with Balena button, that is what initiates the process. The rest of it then occurred in the cloud for the containers. And oops, this tab, I'm gonna close that one out so I don't get confused. And I'm also gonna close, nope. I added my device, and when you click Add Device, you're brought to this screen about the device type, and here's where I selected Wi-Fi plus Ethernet, and I put in my Wi-Fi credentials. And when I did that, at the bottom, the blue Download Balena OS button, it was lit up just because I had, hold on, I can just do, yeah, there you go. That downloaded my OS image. That file is what I flashed with Etcher. So I flashed my SD card, I powered on, and it checked into Balena Cloud. It said, oh, I'm supposed to have these containers running. Oops. And pulled them down. And we've got, at this point, at least on my desk, a functional device. So let me come over here. And
something else that's possible too in those steps is when you initially click the Deploy with Balena and it opens the dashboard, it may default to a device other than the Raspberry Pi 3, and you need to make sure that that matches the device type that you have, because it'll actually set up slightly different configurations that are in the case of a Raspberry Pi 4 and 3 are not compatible, for example.
All right, and I see Frank got a smiley face. Okay, so I do see there's quite a few more questions and comments in here. I'm going to do one more thing real quickly, and then we'll come back and feed through these questions here. The last thing I'm going to do is this. I'm going to make note, you can see your IP address is provided here, is captured here. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to open up a new browser. I'm on the same LAN, obviously, as this device, so I can just simply go to this IP address. And those containers are doing their job. I can see that my air quality is very unhealthy, so if I drop dead, John, please take over. I'm going to actually change the time frame to 15, so last 15 minutes. While this device settles down, it may change, but I'm pulling 210% humidity, so I guess I'm underwater as well. Not sure what's going on with that. I hope yours are a little more accurate. Temperature looks good though, 34 degrees Celsius, and my barometric pressure says stormy. It is cloudy out, but I don't see any storms, but that's okay. So we can see that we are in fact pulling data. So all said and done, we've got an IoT endpoint capturing environmental data. And I did it with a click of a couple buttons. So I'm thinking that's a success. I'm gonna come back for one last moment. And there's a toggle switch right here for public device URL. It's kind of small here. If you turn that on, over the VPN that is running on the device, we will expose that port 80 endpoint. So I've turned it on, and now I'm going to copy. Well, actually, when I click this little arrow, it will open in a new tab. And you will see that you have a device ID .balena-devices.com, and it's the same dashboard. The point is here is that it's exposed to the internet. So if somebody wants to drop in theirs, I'll pull it up live and we will check their weather and their device. I shot JR's pretty quick there. I got Kevin's here. Let's see. Coming in. And Kevin says, let's see. Taking a moment. Uh-oh, Kevin, are we killing your pie there or your bandwidth? Try my Paul. Neil. I'll bring them all up, no problem. They may take a moment. Those endpoints might not be quite ready yet. Let's see. Kevin's is, it's spinning. All right, it's coming up. It takes a minute. So let's go back and capture a couple of the questions here, Alessandro. I don't know if you've queued some up or curated.
So there is, I think, I think there is. So David is having a problem. He's writing down. So he never saw any download activity after the LEDs came on. So I think he's struggling a little bit. Maybe John, maybe you can, if you don't mind, could you like just chat to him, maybe directly, just to see where he's at, just because I'm not sure.
One other thing I would say to check is after you created your application, you should have a device here. Mine is called Withered Breeze. It sounds like you have a device already. That's good. On the left, if you click on releases, you should have a release, which is the build job that ran. And mine succeeded, and it built 5 containers. Double check to see if you have a release. Make sure that you triggered your event properly by clicking the button from that license repo.
We've also have Trinity here saying, we encountered an error when reaching this Balena.io device. They're posting on the chat, the ID number.
Trinity, you might have been a little too fast. Give it a moment and refresh. You might also want to reboot the device, Trinity. I have seen that occur on rare occasions. Trinity, if your containers are built, if you click on the device and you see that all 5 of them are downloaded and running, then I'd say give it a moment and refresh, or give it a reboot. Now, let me see. JB, yours says that you failed the build. Well, okay. So what I would say for you is go back to GitHub and click the button again. Simple as that. Let it try again. Honestly, we may have overloaded that those cloud builders. I wouldn't be surprised. We probably should have given Packet some warning as to what we were about to do. But simple as that, I would say just literally try again. When you do that, it's going to say, here, I'll click it right now. It's going to say, do you want to deploy it to an existing application? You can overwrite the exact same application, or you can create a new one. Either way is fine. So give that a chance, or give that another try. Rebecca.
And then I think there is one last thing here. Okay. So Trinity, he doesn't see the 5 containers. Okay,
so then let's come back. Oops. All right. There's going to be 2 places that you can see them. I was on this page right here, which is, I'm going to take this from the top. You know what? I'll show 2 different methods. Okay. From the very top of your, call it tree, breadcrumb, if you click on applications, I of course have lots of them. The one that I just made right now was DevSummit. When you click on DevSummit, or whatever you named your application, you would have a list of all of the devices in this fleet. We only have 1, but you could theoretically continue to add devices, and they would all start appearing straight down this list. On the left, I clicked on releases, and then I clicked on anywhere in this row to see that it did succeed with the build. The other place is going to be, click on DevSummit, which is my application name again. And now I'm going to click on Withered Breeze, and scrolling down, I do see that my 5 containers are in fact on this device and running. So I'm on the device details now at this point. Let me try and Trinity is rebuilding. Scott, some poor DevOps guy is freaking out right now. Sorry, Packet. Sorry about that. Kevin says, we'll rebuild, thanks. Okay. DevOps person, that's correct. Trinity, that was the issue, still said factory. I guess the build did not succeed. Retrying, okay. Yeah, I think we might have overloaded that server with trying to have 39 concurrent builds. All right, fair enough. It probably stalled on a few. But that's the process. Now I'm looking at the clock and we've only got 20 minutes. So let me do this. I'm going to come back to the presentation, to my slideware real quickly, and I'm going to skip to where we are at the moment. Okay, we clicked the blue button. We created an application. We saw that it was building a release. We then added a device and added our, oops, I went too fast, and added our Wi-Fi credentials. We flashed the SD card. We built the Pi. We powered it on. We saw we got a device. I made note of its IP address and it began to download its containers. At the end of the process, it was fully running its containers and we got a dashboard. All right, so knowing we only have 21 minutes, let me think for one moment here, whether we want to go into the slightly harder way or not. But while I do that, I want to see some environmentals coming off of some other folks. That one's me. That one's not running yet. Uh-oh, unhealthy. 76% humidity. Unhealthy, 80%, 34. Man, 866 millibars of pressure. Okay, so some folks are, their devices are running. Very cool. Definitely have some air quality issues though. But all right, Alessandro, let me ask this. Knowing that I am able to stick around, I'm happy to continue on. John, you think we can do it in 20 minutes? Maybe if I fly through it?
Yeah, I think so. The you know, there's some detail about the actual process on your workstation, and it's going to vary whether you have Windows, Mac, or Linux.
Yeah.
So the key to these to this step is the cloning of the GitHub repo, which means that you need to have Git installed on your workstation and the Balena CLI.
All right. Well, I see folks saying, do it, do it, do it. Please do, please do. All right. No worries. We have Git. All right. Well, the people have spoken. So we're going to continue. We'll run it up to the bell, and the bell rings at the top of the hour. We'll see where we're at. All right. So what we're going to do is this. I'm going to create a new application just because I don't want to interfere with this one. I'm going to call it... I called the last one DevSummit. What am I going to call this one? I guess I'll call it DevSummit. I'll just append the 2020 to it or something is fine. I'm going to choose Raspberry Pi 3. We already know that. I'll put it back on starter. Not sure why it switched on me. And create a new application. I'm going to let that go for a moment because we already know what's going to happen there. I'm going to have an empty application with no devices. Okay. Did that. We did that. Okay. That's going to take a moment. No problem. We'll wait for it. All right. Next step, obviously. Did it just the same as last time. Add a device. I'm about to kill my previous one, so bye-bye. IoT weather
Yeah.
station.
And it is possible to move the device that you just did into this application, so you don't have to reflash. You can actually just go into that app and under the main Chevron menu, choose move device, and then choose the other application, and it will return it to what it will essentially be a factory build, but it will retain your Wi-Fi credentials. It'll still be a Raspberry Pi 3 device type, image, and everything else.
All right, made a new one. So yeah, you can just move devices around between applications, and the device will just grab whatever workload is supposed to be running from that application. But I will.
Right, it will not have any containers.
Right, correct.
Like, because here's the new application, it has no release, no containers, nothing. So if you move that other device to this one,
it will tell me the camera was still on.
It will wipe it out. It will wipe out what you did before and reset it. But it will retain its name and everything else. It becomes sort of a fluid player that you can reuse. That's a little trick that we use sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, that like if you flash 3 or 4 different devices and you're invariably working on another project and you want something and you don't necessarily have another device to use, or you don't want to go through and the reflashing steps, you can just move it. As long as it's the same device type or within the same family, Balena Cloud will know and allow you to move it to that.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about that too is if you take that device and then move it back, it'll automatically grab the last release that was in that application, deploy those containers, restart them, and that application is up and running again, just as it was before.
Yep. All right, so I added the device, downloaded Balena OS. This Balena OS is now different than the previous one because this is a new application that's included. The UID for the application, I put my Wi-Fi credentials in, I'm flashing it now to the SD card, so I am essentially overwriting my previous one, which means I can close these tabs because they are not there anymore.
And from a fleet management standpoint, like if you had a bunch of Pi 3s, you can take that same image that you just downloaded for this application, flash it to multiple SD cards, insert it into multiple devices, and all of those devices will begin to appear in this application dashboard. They'll all have a unique name, a unique ID. They'll have unique IP addresses that they're getting from your Wi-Fi network. And then they'll just all grab the images and start the services and containers.
Okay, just plugged it back in. Didn't realize that my camera was on that thing the whole time, so I apologize that you couldn't see me. And now I just powered it.
We did like
back
the smiley
up.
face though.
You like the smiley face? Why didn't somebody say something? Come on, you guys.
And
I thought you wanted to show the smiley face.
No.
Like to have multiple devices. Like I run Balena Sense, and I set up ones without the full-fledged hat that you have. I just have a one-wire sensor, which is a very simple, cheap thing to do. Put one downstairs in a different room, and I can have them all in the same application, and I can see all the data from the different ones. Then I went through and enhanced one of the versions I did so they can read all the data into a single dashboard. That's one of the things, like when you want to edit one of these applications that you downloaded, the steps that David's going through now with pushing from your workstation essentially allows you to do that, where you're taking and grabbing GitHub code, modify it if you want, and push those modifications to your device.
So
interesting question.
Go ahead.
Do you want to take this? So they're asking about, Scott is asking about the comms between the edge client and the backend. MQTT, REST, SALT, in case people need to open ports on their network.
John, if you want to grab that oh, what is the word I'm looking for? That network connection, network requirements doc that we have. That would be pretty good. It's all across a VPN actually, but you do need ports 80, port 443 for API and VPN traffic.
Right, and I think,
and I'm
sure I have
gonna, yeah, while you're looking for that, John, I'm gonna move along quick. So this one here is now online. It does not have a workload, factory build. It is not downloading any containers because I did not click any magical blue buttons on this one. All I did was create an application and a device. It has no workload or containers. So I'm gonna give it some. I'm gonna open up, I've got a VM running here I've got an Ubuntu VM. And here's where we are going to, oops, not that. Here's where
David,
we're going
you said your build failed on the MQTT. Yes, you can restart that service. I believe the repo is set to restart the services automatically, but you can also manually trigger stops and starts.
Yeah,
right from the dashboard.
So I'm using that same repo now in Ubuntu, and let's do a maker work, cd work, just put it in here, git clone. So I'm going to clone this repo. All right, quick enough. Now, this is where you need the CLI installed. I have already done that. For the sake of time, I'm going to hold off on going through those steps. They're in the chat. Adam, if you're there, if you don't mind dropping in the link to the GitHub documentation on how to do it, I'm going to skip it just looking at the clock. I've already done it, and I have, oops, let's make this a little bigger. So I have access to the Balena command line. So this is the Balena tooling for logging in, pushing, checking logs, SSHing to devices, preloading containers and images. There's a couple other functions we're not going to get into here, but I'm going to do a Balena push, hang on, push. And what did I call that application? DevSummit 2020. All right. When we do this, uh-oh, I'm not in the right folder. I git cloned and didn't change into Balena since. Now we'll do it again. When I do this, it is going to examine the contents of the folder. That git clone brought down all of those same folders that we saw earlier. There's 5 folders here, and we've seen these before. Let's open up Grafana. Inside of Grafana is a Docker file, and that Docker file contains the set of instructions needed to install and run Grafana. Run install packages, wget, copy over some files that we've already pre-written, run the installation of the .deb file. So a Docker file is really a set of instructions like a recipe. Let's go look over at Influx. Influx Docker file contains apk add influxdb, and the command at the end of it is run influx. So, you know, I'm not going into the gruesome details of Docker files here, but and a Docker compose file in the top level tells overall the build, how to proceed, what to build. So you can see we're going to start influx service, Grafana service, the sensor service, telegraph, and MQTT. So all of this is pre-written. Again, because like John mentioned at the very beginning, we have a team of hardware hackers whose job it is to literally create all of this. In the background here, that Balena push command is doing exactly what we saw from the big blue button earlier, which is running the build. This is all being pushed from my laptop up to those packet servers, and those packet servers are chewing through these as we speak, which means we're also probably killing those servers yet again. But it is just following along the recipe and building the containers. So I'm going to let that go for a little bit.
Just a quick one.
Go ahead.
So folks were asking about slides earlier. So the slides will not be available. The recording is available. So you will find the recording available or on the website, on the ARM DevSummit website afterwards, 24 hours after this. And then I believe all these instructions, David, are on the GitHub, right? So people could just go on the GitHub. It also contains this harder set of instructions, right?
Yeah, actually it does. So this workshop is entirely based upon this project. Where's my history? Right here. And this walks you through what is needed, how to build it, and how to deploy it. And let me do also a quick Google for Balena blog, Balena Sense. Here we go. This blog article is fantastic. Let me grab that and put it in chat as well. Okay, because really everything I've done is taken from this, and I put it into slide form and walked through the steps, but it's all documented right here. In fact, here's putting the hardware together, showing one built. He's using a BME 680 instead of a SenseHAT here, but that's fine. So, sign up for a Balena Cloud account was literally step one. So yeah, I didn't actually do any magic here today. I kind of repurposed our existing project into workshop format. Someone's getting 404s.
I think you just pasted it twice in there.
Oh,
Yeah,
did I paste it twice? Oops, sorry. Oops. Got carried away. So let's come back and just see if that build, still running, still going. Okay, yeah, it's gonna take some time. We saw that on the first one as well. At the end of this process, what is gonna happen? Well, let me see something. Hold on, step 12 out of 17, but which container is it on? Grafana telegraphs.
So if you've got some time while you're doing this, it'd be interesting. So David Aishar is asking, but also, I was going to ask to talk about Grafana, MQTT, and InfluxDB. Like, what are they? If
Good call out. Yeah. Absolutely, we sure do, because this build's going to take a few minutes anyway. Ooh, I wish I had not killed my other device then, huh? Okay, so actually, John, do you want to handle that one real quick? Do you want to go over what the 5 containers, what those pieces actually are?
Sure. As you look at, I'm just going to call mine up so I can be slightly
That's kind of why I was
informed. Okay. So Grafana and InfluxDB, and actually with Grafana, I'm trying to think what the connector is. But if you've ever used Grafana, it has it's the actual dashboard that you're looking at with the nice, pretty graphs. It has a number of great plugins for different data sources, including InfluxDB. And what's happening here, you have the sensor container, which has permissions on the actual Raspberry Pi to speak to the hat and to get the values that it's spitting out. And there's a little script in there that's polling the sensor and grabbing that information. It's using Telegraph to basically collect that and transmit it um, into the InfluxDB database, which is it just takes a simple value and a time and a couple other bits of information that then Grafana can see and display. If you can actually log in to the Grafana dashboard, whatever the default credentials are, I forget off the top of my head, it's like admin and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or something like that.
Admin maybe, I can't remember.
Or admin. That's just the straight Grafana credentials, but you can tweak what is essentially a JSON file that creates all those graphs. You can change the parameters any way you want, and that is sort of the power of Grafana to give you a nice way to look at what is essentially plain data. So that's basically it.
All right.
That's Charlie the unicorn.
There's Charlie. Okay, so our build was successful. So it took 5 minutes, 41 seconds, 7 minutes, 36 total. Okay, so not too bad for a box that's being absolutely destroyed at the moment. That's poor server. So the build finished. It was successful. I saw that scroll by right up here. Yep, successful upload image, release successfully created. And Summer Glade has now noticed that those containers are ready and is beginning to pull them down. So the same outcome is going to occur. We will end up with that Grafana dashboard showing our environmental data. But in this scenario, we did the git clone and the Balena push. The reason for that is, or the reason I wanted to show that, I'm going to come back to my slide deck with 1 minute to spare. Holy cow. I flashed the SD card again. I powered it up. It's back on my desk. It sat there idle with no workload until I add a container through the CLI. I chose Balena Sense with a git clone. I then pushed the container. I was already logged in. I did a Balena push, Balena sense. We ran through those build steps. I received Charlie, the unicorn, and it's still downloading them. We know that that's going to take a few minutes, but the end result is they will start up, they will be running, and oops, we get our dashboard again.
I should note too that if you do a Balena push app name and you aren't logged in, the CLI will prompt you and say, "Hey, you're not logged in," and then you do a Balena login, which will prompt you for. It'll show you several different ways to authorize. In the default one being the web browser, which when you hit return, it will open a web browser and you just hit authorize. That is putting a token essentially on your workstation that shares the credentials. So when you do the Balena push app name, it knows where to send it. It knows to send it specifically to your account and your application within that account, and to all devices that are attached to that application in your account.
So, we ran a minute over at this point. Alessandro, are there any other questions that you've seen come through? We're actually, I mean, we really hustled at the end there, but that's pretty
So the only thing, so David needs to leave. So I'm sharing with him the blog that you just shared earlier. I think that contains everything, correct?
It sure does. It absolutely does contain everything. I'm just plugging that back in, sorry. So the The blog contains everything. You had also mentioned that the slides are not available. I mean, I'm certainly happy to make them available. It's just a, you know, a PDF export. I know they were not like sent anywhere. I mean, if there's something you can think of, or if you want to circle back with the team afterwards, somewhere to host them or something.
Yes, you could put them on GitHub if you want.
Yeah, I could even do that, right? Yeah.
You can do that if you want. We don't have, apparently there isn't a place to host the slides on the
that's what I was thinking, if there was some, you know, formal. Okay, so my containers are downloaded again.
There was a question. There was a question from David about when you're using the command line, whether the containers are still being built on the server or whether they're being built on a local machine. I'm not sure if you picked that one up.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one? If the containers are being built
using the CLI tools, are the containers still being built locally?
They are not. They're being built still in the cloud. What we are doing, let me come back to my VM and I'll scroll. If it hasn't cleared the scroll back, we might be able to see it. I'm on. Okay, perfect. Starting build. And that third line, building on ARM01. That's the cloud builder, in this case running at Packet. So what it does is it pushes the Docker composed file and the contents of the folders, the Docker files themselves that are in the folders, it pushes it all up to the cloud, to the Packet builder, and the Packet builder churns through and runs it all. So no, there is tooling that can allow for local builds, but by default, done in the cloud.
Right, we have a local mode which does the building on the actual device.
Yep.
And we call that local mode or local push, which skips the push up to the cloud and down back to the down to your device, and just goes straight from your workstation to the device. In development, that's a little faster, depending on the device that you're using as well.
So while we were chatting, a keen eye may have noticed me flash a second SD card. And the reason I did that was I added another pie. Is that in frame? Hold on, I can't quite tell. Yeah, barely in. So I added a Pi 3 as well. So now I've started my own little miniature fleet. It does not have a SenseHAT on it, but I just wanted to see it show up online. So it's not gonna grab any environmental data. Those containers will actually fail. But I just wanted to kind of show how you can then start to, you know, what it looks like with a second device. So here's his little friend right there. That about does it. 5 minutes over, not too bad actually, due to our hustling. So scaling in a global fleet, let me do this. Let me put the camera back on me. I just wanted to show my second pie there. Come back to me. I won't leave it on there for 20 minutes like last time, since Alessandro failed to inform me. All right, so that's what it looks like once you start to really build out a fleet of global devices. Their latitude and longitude are available in the dashboard. In fact, I'll come back over to here and we will see that these devices are not too far from Costco Wholesale in Phoenix. All right, not too bad, but my devices are here in Arizona. So if I had others in other places, you'd see them show up like this. And questions and Q&A, I will stick around. I'm gonna go one more slide forward before I open up the floor, because I want to quickly sneak this in. All right, you've now got a Pi 3 and a Balena Cloud account. We built Balena Sense today, and that's all well and good. But like John said, there's a whole team that is employed to build awesome open source projects. Balena Sound, Balena Dash, Balena Cam, Open Data Cam. We have a LoRa Gateway project. We've got some BLE location projects. Trying to think what other ones are out there. But basically, if you go take a look at the Balena blog or even just the Balena GitHub, you can find all kinds of things. Dash is like a kiosk type of project. Cam makes use of a Pi camera. LoRa Gateway, obviously, self-explanatory. You'll need a LoRa modem, but Open Data Cam uses a Jetson Nano for machine learning. Is really cool. And last but not least, there are the blogs, the forums, and the GitHub links. I can drop those into chat for anyone that needs them. Final shameless plug. We run, John joins most of them as well. Iot Happy Hour every Friday at 1600 UTC. It's a pretty laid back hangout. Tomorrow we've got the IoT North community leader, Paul, who works for AD Link. And they build some really cool AI-enabled devices, both in x86 and ARM land. By all means, I post on Twitter the link to it. It's on our YouTube channel. You can access the whole playlist there. That's it. Let's get some questions.
I was just going to add, you may have noticed that even when your device is running on a private subnet, or even on, if you're running a virtual machine as a device natted to that machine itself, because Balena OS uses VPN, it can still reach it as long as port 443 is open. And can communicate over 443, it can connect to the dashboard and you can track them. So, you can actually take something and set it up at your place of work or home, ship it to somebody, add multiple Wi-Fi credentials, and there's information on how to do that in the Balena docs. And they can power it up and it'll join your application as soon as it's powered up and hops on that remote network.
So, both of these devices are on my desk, but Balena Cloud is intended for devices to be anywhere, fully intended for them to be out in the field. So that is it.
And the updates, one of the nice things that when David didn't get a chance to show like a second and a third push locally, like if he made edits to that project, locally to make some customizations, he would just do a Balena push DevSummit 2020, that's the name of his application again. And in that case, what actually gets pushed to the device isn't the full containers again, but just the deltas, only the layers that have changed between the two, which is significantly smaller. So if you're using a device over cell or a place where Wi-Fi is sketchy or just not very fast, deltas can dramatically reduce the amount of throughput that's happening because it's just pushing the changes.
Exactly. So as you make changes to your project, you just do the same exact thing, Balena push to your application name. And instead of what you see here on this one with Charlie and all of those, you'll only see the delta, the changes being made. And, maybe it's a meg, maybe less than a meg, maybe it's a couple megs, whatever. But not the full release. So, Alessandro, any last questions trickle in?
There was no last questions. I was just going to reiterate that your show is really fun. So if anyone wants to watch that, I think it's
we have a good time.
No, it is. I mean,
it's a blast.
I really like it. I enjoy it. Unfortunately, I can't make all of them, but they're fun. I've actually, I've stolen a couple of guests from your show to interview them on our
yeah, it's
innovation
all right.
coffee
I think
that we do as well.
I've stolen some of yours as well, so it's all right. Yeah, it's right here, youtube.com/balenaIO, and then this right here, Iot Happy Hour, is the playlist. Of course, like I say, it's done Fridays live, so you can always tune in live. And just like this chat right here, it's pretty interactive. I mean, we keep the, we keep engaged with the audience. It's a lot of fun. So, anything else? I want to respect people's time, so I kind of am thinking of maybe we should close it out, but I'm also happy to stick around and answer any questions if anyone needs anything. So feel free to put them in chat now.
We also share the Discord just in case people want to chat to you afterwards, or do you guys have your own forums and things that you want to share?
The forums, so a couple things to reach out to us, right? So first and foremost, just feel free to shoot me an email. Easy enough. David@balena.io. I watch our Twitter pretty much all day. That's our Twitter handle right there, @Balena_IO. We do have our forums as well, which is forums.balena.io. There you go. And the engineers hang out in here. The community hangs out in here. I can see right away there's some multi-container. Balena ruined my micro SD. What is this? Get out of here. I just used it I just did that. Didn't ruin any micro SDs. So, folks have some opinions, but Wi-Fi Connect, no sound, Bluetooth, etc., etc. The Discord link, I don't have one handy. Alessandro, if you have one, it is not a formal or official Balena channel. It's just a community server that I happen to hang out in, but I'm certainly happy to address any questions there. So, you can send me a carrier pigeon for all I care. The point is get a hold of me. We're happy to help. And I see a couple of folks said, thanks. Oh, well, I normally like to teach these in person, but we made it work.
And I was just fetching the Discord server. This is the Discord server. I just posted it on the chat. Yeah,
to state formally, it is not an official ARM server. It is not an official Balena server. It just happens to be one that I hang out in. So.
Yeah, same goes for me.
So state your get your.
It's nothing official, but
no.
If folks want to just have a chat, talk about anything, it's a good place.
Get your disclaimers in. But Sydney says it worked. All right. So if anyone. Again, Alessandro, this is geared towards you and what your agenda looks like. If anyone does want to unmute and ask any questions, I'm good with that. Alessandro, if you need to leave, I understand that as well.
That's fine. No, if anybody has any other questions, I guess we could give it another 4 or 5 minutes. If anyone has any question they want to ask directly, feel free to do that.
Okay.
I think you can unmute yourself, but let me know if you can't.
Hello there.
Hello, is that Nikita?
Hi.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say thank you so much for hosting this. I'm an undergraduate student and it was so informative. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for hosting and thank you for being here.
Hey, you are very welcome. Where are you going to school?
Louisiana State University.
LSU, a Tiger. All right.
Yes, sir.
My wife has a couple of classes there that she needed to use to achieve work on her master's from there. So I'm familiar.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. What are you majoring in?
Mechanical engineering, but I'm getting
Mechanical, electrical is by far, everybody knows electrical. Come on.
I honestly should have picked it.
No, I'm teasing you. I'm only teasing. Nikita, if you have any questions, by all means, we try to engage with universities as best as we can. Also, in prior days, we would, be happy to host hackathons and things on campus, but it's not quite the case right now. But certainly I'm happy to assist and lend a hand anywhere.
I completely understand. Thank you very much, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, Nikita, for joining us.
Thank you, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Take it easy.
Anyone else has any questions? Last call?
No, last call. Going once, going twice.
I'll do a bit of a shameless plug as well. I'll put in the YouTube. We just launched a YouTube, ARM software developer YouTube. So if anybody wants to subscribe to that, there's going to be some fun tonight. We're having, actually this afternoon, I mean, it's night for me because I'm in the UK, but it's afternoon for you guys. For whoever is in the US, there is actually a kind of after hours. We're going to do a breakdown of the day, so it's going to be fun.
Very cool.
Rebecca is asking one question on the chat. Are there any other events we can go to build on this project, or other IoT project webinars? So there are a couple of things running. There is something just started now actually with machine learning on a Cortex-M device. So an IoT application with Arduino and camera. And then there's other things happening at the moment. And then I guess, stay tuned. I think we're both ARM and Balena are putting out workshops, tutorials, all sorts of like webinars and things, I think on a quite regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly keep your eyes peeled for anything like that. You can also check out, like I was mentioning, the Balena blog has other projects similar to this that you can build at home and build little IoT devices. Other way to take that question though is go have a look. ARM DevSummit has a couple more hours left. So if you go check the agenda, there's about 10 or 11 tracks running concurrently. I have a strange feeling you will find other IoT projects going now.
Cool, and with that, I think we can close, given that we passed 20 minutes past the hour. I just want to give you guys a kind of personal thank you, because David and John, you've been amazing. I think Adam probably agrees that this was a dream. Like, I wish everybody was so prepared as you were. Everything was so smooth. So thank you guys. Thank you for putting the work in.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, no worries. Tom Kelsky, I see your last question there. If you shoot me an email, actually, I'll make it real quick. By all means, Balena OS is open source. You can, in fact, add additional boards. Shoot me an email real quickly to david@balena.io, and I'll give you some quick bullet points on it.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. Thank you again. And thank you, Adam, for supporting and
take it easy
and being in the background. But
all right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. See ya.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.